Hello everybody, welcome back to my movie review series. Today we'll be discussing Limitless. Just finished watching it on HBO Max, I guess technically just Max now. But like I said, I got a week free trial for my Hulu. So pumping out as many movies from this site as I can before that runs out. But I don't know, I might stay with this one. I'll probably cancel Hulu for a month. Again, I'm jumping around for content and seems to be a bunch of movies I like on HBO Max or Max. So, might do that, might not, but continuing on, you know how we do it. I will give you my overall impressions in grade after giving you the logistics and basics about the movie. If you have not seen it and would like to, based on my recommendation or not recommendation, you want to shut off the video because there will be spoiler alerts. We'll discuss the plot synopsis and character development and any similar movies or major themes. So we got Limitless, released in 2011, rated PG-13. It's a thriller action movie, has an hour and 45-minute runtime. You can watch it now on Max. Yep, and then the other ones. It says, facing unemployment and his girlfriend's rejection, writer Eddie Mora, played by Bradley Cooper, is sure that he has no future. That all changes when an old friend gives him a drug that produces enhanced mental acuity. Sensorality is acuity. Stoked on the untested chemical, Eddie rises to the top of the financial world and attracts the attention of a tycoon played by Robert De Niro, who intends to use him to make a fortune. But terrible side effects and a dwindling supply threaten to collapse Eddie's house of cards. Budget $27 million, did $161 at the box office. We got Robert De Niro and Bradley Cooper as the main stars. 86% liked it on Google, 3.3 out of 5 on Letterboxd, 69% on Rotten Tomatoes. Nice. 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb. Why to watch? It's from Google says it's thrilling and stunning. Overall, I thought there was novelty to this one. I had definitely seen this one before. So I definitely thought, especially for an action thriller movie, I thought this was up there for more intriguing. But I thought, again, the plot was novelty to me. It seemed like yesterday when reviewed Old, and that one had a lot of bad ratings, but just something novel in the writing script is going to keep me entertained, and that's what I look for in a movie. And so overall, I thought the characterizations were strong. Just the idea of a drug making you really smart and seeing where you're going to explore characterization with that, I thought was entertaining. That the runtime was good. I thought the plot development was good. It's kind of narrated by Bradley Cooper, just like, slight narration points. So I thought the overall production and end piece was very well done. So I'm going to give it an A- overall again. Thought there was novelty to the plot. Thought the movie was good. The plot moved along well, and the characterizations were strong. So overall, I think on the lower end of well done for this one, so I definitely recommend it. So if you've not seen it and would like to, you want to shut off this video now, because now we're moving on to the plot synopsis and character development. So the movie opens up, and Eddie Mora is at this high-rise apartment building. People are banging down this big security door, and he's doing some narration like, I'm going to jump off the ledge, but, how did I get here? And so then you get a flashback. He's a struggling writer. He does have a book contract, but he's not written one word of the book. Kind of the next scene after the opening, well, you get him standing on the ledge, and then you get some intro credits. And then the first scene, I think, is him sitting down with his girlfriend, Lindy, and she's basically breaking up with him, saying, you're not going anywhere, you're not doing anything, blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of the first thing he does, is gets broken up with by his girlfriend. His apartment's really run down, really low amenities, it's really dirty. But he runs into, he had married somebody right out of college named Melissa. And, you have a quick flashback scene about that. And then what happens is he runs into Melissa's brother on the street. So he meets up with him. The dude looks like he's doing well. He's got a nice suit on. Eddie asks him if he's still dealing, telling the viewer that he was a drug dealer, and this guy wants to go and hear about Eddie's. I think his name is Vernon. Yeah, his name is Vernon because So Vernon is the brother, the ex-brother-in-law, and so they sit down for a little bit. They talk a little bit. Then Vernon's like, "Here you go, try out this. If you're needing some creative help, try this out. It's FDA approved, and it'll definitely do the trick for you." And so at first Eddie's kind of reluctant, doesn't really want to do it. But then on his way home, I think he either takes it then or right in the stairwell of his apartment building. But he's talking to his landlord's young wife, and she's just like bitching at him for not paying rent or whatever, and he's just kind of zoning out, and the drugs just starting to kick in, and then he is full on. He says they allude to like 1,000 IQ points, and so he's just picking up. He notices they just some visual effects to show that he's becoming more acute. But he has he like notices just from the corner of the book that it's a law book, and he can tell that she's a law student working on a paper because she has this book, and he hasn't like seen the book since 12 years ago. One time at a frat party, he was just sitting there and he's just connecting the dots. So again, entertainment value. I think just exploring if a drug can make you extremely smart, what would that character look like? So I thought that was interesting throughout the movie. But regardless, he definitely impresses her and helps her with all of her homework, and then boinks her. So he's not too caring for the landlord's marriage, but regardless, that's what happens. And then he cleans up his whole apartment, and then he writes like 20 pages, 40 pages, or 100 pages of this book in a couple of days and turns it in. But then the next day when he wakes up, he does not have any of these mental enhancements, and so he goes back to Vernon, really trying to get more. And again, the drug profile is it just makes him really smart. There's no like, you don't trip, you don't get drunk, you don't have any sort of physiological impairments. You just get more acute sensorially. And so, regardless, he goes back to Vernon to get more, and basically Vernon has him to be his errand boy to get more. And so he sends him out for breakfast, and there's a little more narration from Bradley Cooper. And when he comes back, by the time he gets back, the apartment had been broken into, and Vernon was shot dead on the couch. And so Eddie kind of like, whoa, that could have been me if I was here. But then he calls the police, and then he realizes, the people that came here were certainly looking for this drug, which was not FDA approved. He was still just a drug dealer. But so he's still, wondering like if they came to look for it, but did they find it? And so he calls the police, and he's frantically rushing around to try to figure out if they found the pills. And he finds this big stash of these, and it's called NZT-48. He finds a big stash of these NZT pills in his oven. So he's able to. He also finds $10,000, and so he's able to pocket the money, pocket the drugs. Lets the police in. There's a minor character a police officer, and he goes to the police station, questions him a bit, but then the police officer says something's amiss here, but he's released and. After he does his questioning. So now he's got these pills and this money, and with that he is able to finish the book in 4 days, and then after that he has this realization that he shouldn't be writing books. He starts making new friends, he goes on trips, but regardless, they're just a bunch of quick cut scenes of him doing productive things. And so he learns languages really quickly, even just exposure to some of it. He just, extremely quick learner. And so he decides after one of his trips with his friends that he needs to focus his money on finance, and he can make a big impact in the world of business. And so he starts trading stocks. He turns, $1,500. He quadruples his money like 4 times in a row. And so he takes, $10,000. Well, I think, first he quadruples his money like twice or 4 times or whatever. So he's got 20, 30 grand. He needs more money. And so he can't get traditional financing. So you meet the protagonist of the movie, Gennady, who's just like, I don't know what Eastern European this country is from. Didn't really recognize the accent. But I don't know, Serbian or Croatian or one of those regions. Didn't recognize the language. But regardless, this guy is, a street thug, and he's able to loan Eddie $100,000. And so Eddie takes the $100,000, joins a day trading firm, and turns his $100,000 into like $2.2 million in like 4 days. And so he gets the attraction or the attention of Carl Van Loon, played by Robert De Niro, who is this big business tycoon who runs, a big public company. And so he gets a meeting with that through one of the day trading colleagues or owners or whoever, and that's for the next day. He meets back up with Lindy, who broke up with him, and he impresses her again with, just his growth or his maturity or his discipline or whatever. She doesn't know that he's on these drugs. And so they get back together, they start going back and forth, dating. And he has this big meeting with Carl Van Loon. And so he goes to the meeting. The first day he's on the NZT, and so he really impresses Carl. He kind of like knocks down all of these impressive things, and he's on after the meeting, they're riding in this private car, and Carl Van Loon's like, hey, take a look at these companies, and Eddie Moore at this point realizes he's using him to, they're doing some big merger with who's the other one, Hank Atwood's company. And so Hank Atwood is this another big business visionary, and Eddie's been able to break down the business situation on the car ride home. And so after that, he gets out and they have a big meeting the next morning, and Eddie's, he's vibing, he's in the zone, so he just starts walking down the street and just starts doing stuff. But he's been doing a ton of NXT, he's been upping the dose, and so now he starts like having flashbacks and blacking out. And so you have a bunch more quick cut scenes. He gets into a fight. He's like, do I remember how to fight? He's like, you flashbacks to watch like Bruce Lee or something, and he's able to fight. And so, but just, a series of 5 minutes of scenes of him, blurring, going through a whole night and not really remembering what's going on. He impresses some girl, some blonde chick. She's married once again. They go up to the room, and then he just kind of like wakes up the next day. And it's like, with some narration, I don't remember the past 18 hours of my life. And so he has this big meeting, and he is also out of NXT on him. And so he's kind of like, drug withdrawal sick. He tries to call in and say that he can't make the meeting, and whoever set up the meeting is like, no, you're going to get in here. And so he shows up, not on NXT, can't really break down anything. But they're in this like lobby of this big building, or maybe of the firm. And he sees a television screen with, they're investigating the murder of this blonde chick, which he was clearly with last night. And so he's kind of zoning out. He excuses himself and throws up with more narrations like, did I kill somebody? Comes back into the meeting. But regardless, he's kind of off of the NXT and can't really, assess the situation well. And so that kind of happens. He goes and kind of like stumbles his way to Lindy's office after the meeting. Again, I might miss some scenes, but trying to get the major plot developments. So he kind of like stumbles to Lindy's office and kind of collapses and kind of like tells her everything what's going on. Also, which actually even before this, he meets up with he gets a call from Melissa, again the ex-wife whose brother was murdered, and Eddie wants to meet up with her, and she's like keeps avoiding interacting in person. But Eddie finds, along with the money and the pills at the house, Eddie had also found like a client list. So he starts calling them and realizing they're all either dead or in bad health. And so he finally Melissa gets a hold of him and is like, if you've been taking this stuff, you're gonna crash. And so they meet up, and Melissa's really struggling. And Eddie, again, is like, at this point, I don't think in this scene he's not on it, but he looks well, but she can tell that he's running out or whatever. And so that's what happens, and he learns that he needs to kind of taper off, blah blah blah. But now, again, not in sequential order, but back to the Lindy scene. He kind of collapses in her office and has her go get the pills, which he had stored at her house. And so she gets the pills and realizes she's being followed by the same guy. When he's calling these people, this guy chases him, and the guy that chases Eddie starts to follow Lindy. So she gets the pills, she's in a taxi, she calls Eddie, she's like, this guy's following me for sure, and he's like, run, get away. And so he attacks her in the cab, in the taxi, and she's able to escape, and they go to this park, and Eddie's like, take one of the pills. It's exactly what the drug does, is you'll think your way out, you'll know what to do. So she takes one of the pills. This guy who's following her stabs 2 dudes and kills them. And so she's hiding behind a rock, and then she makes a break for it. And there's this big public skating rink that is pretty popular. And so they she escapes the guy by like picking up a kid and swinging him around and like cuts his face, and so he's injured and falls down, and she's able to escape. And so the next day, Eddie wakes up and Lindy wakes up, and Eddie now has his pills. He's back on the NXT. He's able to do all of the necessary vetting and things for business, but Lindy was like, you're gonna have to do this without me. And so she's now broken up with him again, just learning about the pills. And Eddie is now full-time moderating or negotiating or being a part of this merger and acquisition with the Carl Van Loon and Hank Atwood. And so after that happens, he has these custom-made suits. He hires bodyguards because at this point, Gennady follows him back. He's like, you turned 100K into 2 million, where's my money? And so he pays him the money, and then as he's doing that, as he's, again, might be out of order, but Gennady's trying to get the money or, intimidating him, and Eddie has one pill left, on him at least or something, and Gennady sees it and takes the pill, so now he knows the effects of NXT. Or not NXT, yeah, NZT. Regardless, that's what happens. So Gennady has, he's the street thug, and Eddie hires these bodyguards to follow him around. He buys a $8 million apartment that was a fortress that's supposed to be really, really, well reinforced, and he's moderating this negotiation. So they come to terms that they're all going to agree to and sign these papers the next day for this merger. And then Hank Atwood gets really sick the next day, and he realizes, Eddie makes connections. He sees the driver was the dude chasing both him and Lindy, as well as you'll get to the lawyer part later. But so the this minor cop role comes back into play, and he's like, Eddie's like, I thought we cleared up the death of Vernon, and he's like, no, this is about this blonde chick that he actually probably heavily implied in the movie that he did kill. And he needs to go in for a lineup. So he gets this lawyer, Morris Brandt, who's the best lawyer in New York, and he gets a bunch of people that look the same, and he goes in there, and the person is not able to identify him. So he's kind of off the hook on that one as well. But he gets his jacket back, and his NXT has been gone. He had all of his custom suits made with hidden pockets to store his NXT. But he's now able to, he's got the stash, but there's a scene where it's like he's able to sustain his lifestyle and not take too much, not drink, and eat properly, and then he doesn't have the blackouts. And so, regardless, he's negotiating this deal. The next day, he shows up. He's off the NXT again, or he's on it or off it. I can't remember. Again, I'm probably going out not sequential on the scenes. But he shows up to Carl Van Loon's office, and he's, I think he's waning. Yeah, I think this is right after the police lineup. But, he realizes he doesn't have his pills in his pocket when he tries to take it at the office. And so, he's not as quick as he should be. And then he gets a box, and it's Gennady had Eddie's private security's hands cut off. And so he goes outside or goes home and leaves or whatever. But he is now out of NXT. And so he's trying to find where he's one more pill. He goes back to his apartment. The business deal is kind of postponed because Hank is now in the hospital, and Eddie's made the connection that Hank is on NXT as well, and that's why it's causing his deterioration. But he's at his apartment, and then Gennady and his henchmen come to break in. And then you get back to the very first scene of the movie where he's standing on the ledge, and then he's like, about to jump, but we're instinctual creatures, so he's trying to think where one pill of NXT might be. And so he thinks back to his original storage canister. They're actively trying to break into the door, and he's scurrying, trying to prepare. And so he finds a pill right as they're breaking in, but drops it and falls down the grate. So he's all out of options. He gets, tied up. The two henchmen find a safe. They start, big loud power tools trying to break it down. And Eddie's tied up by Gennady. So Gennady rolls out this big torture suite of pieces of equipment for torturing, and Eddie's able to grab a kitchen knife and kill Gennady. So Gennady's dead. Vernon's been dead, but when the two henchmen come back, Eddie he'd fallen over too, and Gennady had figured out to shoot the NZT. NXT must be like a financial ticker, but NZT, and he like literally drinks his blood and gets the substance in his body, so he's able to think his way out again. One of the henchmen comes over, and he's kind of like acting dead, and he had like taken one of the syringe and like poked his eye out with it, and so one guy's screaming ah. This other guy comes out of nowhere, or not out of nowhere, but the other henchman comes out of the back room, and the guy that's blind is trying to shoot, and Eddie has now learned whatever Eastern European language they're speaking, and tells him to shoot over here, and he shoots his partner, and then the blind guy still realizes that Eddie's alive, and Eddie's able to smash him and break his back by smashing a big piano into him. So that's how Eddie escapes there, and then I think from there you get a 12-year fast forward time frame, because he was going to get $40 million from the deal, but the closure of the deal doesn't close because Hank dies. He has a coma. He passes away, and then there's a TV screen or news broadcast where the wife is like there was no merger going to occur. So then the movie resolves by you get a 12-month fast forward scene. Eddie Moore is now running for the Congress or for the Senate, some section, either House or the Senate, but some point of Congress. And so he's running meetings, and Carl Van Loon shows up in his office and was like, I know you're on this NZT. My company has now bought pharmaceuticals. We shut down your lab, and Eddie had a private producer start making it for him. But Carl was like, we shut down your lab, and there's no way you can get any more. So if you don't come work for me, you're gonna, fall over and die. And so Eddie basically walks him out front, predicts when a van's gonna smash into the back of a taxi. Basically tells Carl to go fuck himself, and calls Carl out on a bunch of just shitty business things that's going on in his life. Like he knows everything, and then Carl's like, you're not gonna get any more NZT, and he's like, I've been off of it for 12 months, so I figured out how to just be this smart without taking it. And so kind of could have been a little stronger plot at the very end, because he's now back with Lindy once again, and he orders in Japanese or Chinese at a restaurant, and Lindy, and that's exactly when the movie cuts off. And so it's like you're not sure if he's actually still on NZT or if he actually did engineer it to just to stay in his system or to be that smart regardless. So I thought it would have been cooler, or again, you don't really get clear resolution, but I thought it'd been like just more interesting, more entertaining to have him actually just be able to be engineered and be off of it and be that smart. Because 1,000 IQ points, that definitely doesn't exist in the populace. Definitely not. Regardless, that's how the movie ends. So overall, I thought it was an interesting idea. I just thought it was a cool concept, interesting script, something different, and a movie I've seen before and enjoyed. So overall, A-, lower end of well done, and I definitely recommend it. So thank you for watching my review of Limitless, and I'll see you on the next one.